Guys, we'll start over.
Okay, so now we're recording.
Oh, man.
I'll just splice the beginning of the Facebook Live and then add this afterward.
Just start it like that. You're listening to Stay Tuned El Paso. It's Victor Cruz, Charlie Bagano, and Erica. We've been talking for about 20 minutes, and now we're recording.
Hello.
Welcome to episode number 31.
It's been 10 minutes.
Okay. We'll just keep going
Well, at least
back.
we have the timer on.
Yeah, well,
We'll keep going back. We're in episode 25. Way 25, our anniversary.
yeah, 25.
Yeah.
34.
Another story locally, sad news, obviously.
Yes.
So there was the National Walkout Day on the 20th, April 20th, and some students from Parkland Middle School decided to go venture out on their own, and they ended up crossing the highway through 375 and Beaumark, and one of them unfortunately was hit by a vehicle, a Ford F-150, and passed away. Here's the audio. Well, maybe it's not working.
Everyone, I'm Robert Olguin.
I'm Erica Castillo, and KFOX 14 News at 5's Michael Ikahihifo is live in the Northeast after speaking to parents and students about the incident.
Well, you know, speaking to parents and students here, they're really shooken up by this tragedy. Now, police responded to the crash around 10:30 this morning, and when they arrived to the scene, emergency crews transported an 11-year-old boy to the University Medical Center, where he later died from his injuries.
It is with great sadness and heavy hearts that we inform you of the death of a Parkland Middle School student. We extend our deepest condolences to all those affected.
What you just heard was a voicemail sent to all parents in the Ysleta School District this morning.
What boy was it? Was it my boy? That was my first thoughts.
I spoke to parents who say they're in disbelief about what happened.
You send your child to school, and you don't never imagine that something like this can happen to you.
Police say the sixth grader did not walk onto the freeway alone.
We don't know how many witnesses there are, so what they're doing is they're interviewing students, they're canvassing the area, and they're diagramming the location.
YISD had the district crisis management team and additional supervision at every school today due to a planned walkout. But officials say the students who walked onto Loop 375 had a walkout of their own.
This, I believe, was an isolated group of students who breached the school's perimeter on the east side, found their way up along the side of the school.
YISD provided grief counselors to Parkland teachers, students, and faculty members.
Everyone is talking about it. Everyone's crying. Everyone's going to the counselor because they need to talk to someone.
Many students who knew the boy who died said he was loved by everyone.
My friend was actually best friends with him, and she was really close to him, and she knows everyone, and she started crying, and I felt really bad for everyone.
As members of the Parkland community come to terms with this tragedy, parents say they will use this incident as a lesson to teach their children about being more safe at school.
It's a reality check that it can happen to anybody.
I feel heartbroken. I can barely speak right now.
Sorry to the parents. I don't know them. I don't think any of us know who the child is yet, but it's very sad.
Now, right now, we don't know the names of that boy or the driver involved in this crash. But what I can tell you is that the mood here at Parkland Middle School has been very somber as parents were picking up their kids early from school. Now, as we gather more information, we will update you on air and online at kfoxtv.com. Reporting live here in Northeast El Paso, Michael Ikahihifo, KFOX 14 News at 5.
That's sad. Mm-hmm. One thing that I'll say that one of the worst things that you can do when you're watching one of these stories on Facebook is read the comments.
Oh my God, yeah.
Because people will get so vicious and they know nothing about what's going on, and a lot of times they're always critical about how the news is being reported. And one thing that I noticed is a lot of people were blaming the school. Mm-hmm. Saying that the school should be sued and this and that, and from what I read in the press in the presser that they had, the school had dedicated the field to the walkout.
Yes,
and it is a closed campus, so the students were supposed to go out to the field or somewhere there on the campus. This group of kids decided to jump the fence
and venture off campus.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that this wasn't necessarily directly related to the walkout, because again, the walkout itself is that you walk out of the classroom and protest, but you stay,
within the campus.
Yeah, you follow the guidelines of whatever the school provides. So this is one of those things that it could have happened any day. This group of kids just kind of capitalized on the whole thing, and they decided to do it as a large group because, everybody would have been distracted anyway.
Yeah.
This is very similar to like when schools in my time, not that we ever had walkouts per se, but we would have, I don't know, teacher versus student volleyball games, like pep rallies and stuff.
Right.
Somebody always snuck out during the pep rally.
They always left. There was always a group.
Yeah, you always knew, or if there was, a dance that week or that Friday, whatever, nobody was all going to the dance. Everybody got out early, so we snuck out, or individuals say, okay, so I did it too. Big deal.
Yeah. And I walked
we
out
all
of
ditched
school
at one point.
Ditched. That's what these kids, not only, they didn't walk out, they should call it really what it was. They ditched.
They ditched.
Yeah.
They ditched during the walkout. But again, my question is, not that there's anybody to blame, possibly the kids themselves, if anybody, but would it not have happened if it was a walkout? Would they have done it during a pep rally? Would they have done it at any other given time?
Who knows if they've done that before? That's the thing. I think when at that age you're an opportunist. If you see that the teachers and the staff are going to be distracted, you're going to go for it.
Right.
And again, some of the comments on Facebook, people were blaming the driver, and I saw one comment specifically where somebody said, "How could you not see a group of kids running across the freeway in daylight? Are you out of your mind? I mean, you're traveling at least 60 miles an hour.
Even if they saw them,
you don't have time to stop.
Not on a highway."
And that's what I don't get is...
It's bad enough, and those who are on the east side know what I'm saying, Charlie, to add to your comment, it's bad enough when you're in front of Hanks High School on Montwood and Lee Trevino, and you're not traveling at a high rate.
Yeah.
There's groups of kids darting in and out of traffic trying to get to lunch back and forth. So that's difficult enough to maneuver. Standing still basically in your car.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So especially if you're on a highway and then you're busy checking, let's be honest, you're distracted as it is as a driver.
Right.
This driver was not giving you 100% attention while they were driving, I guarantee you. There could have been any type of distraction going on.
I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things where you aren't anticipating a person being across
on
the freeway.
Highway.
Yeah. And I don't know if she was on her or he was on their phone or listening to radio, but either way, you don't anticipate a child on the highway.
Let's be very frank. There's very few people, unless you've taken actual legitimate defensive driving or preparatory courses, that actually scan well ahead of where they're driving.
Right.
Otherwise, you're within your bubble.
Yeah.
You're only looking at what's right in front of you.
Right.
So maybe it was too late by the time that they figured out there was people on the road.
Plus, it takes a few seconds
for the vehicle to stop.
But it also takes a few seconds or a second or so to process what is going on. Why is there a child running on the highway? I remember a few years ago, I was driving home from a bar after I had done a stand-up a show, and this was on like a Friday night or Saturday night, and late, maybe 1 a.m., and there was a guy running across I-10, and I saw it from a distance. Luckily, I have pretty good reflexes, and I've bragged about this on Facebook before, but I saw it well in advance, and I hit my hazards, and I hit the brakes, and a lot of other cars started to slow down. And I think for one, obviously, somebody that's going to be running across the freeway like that, they're probably not intending to get hit, but they can't really judge the distance and the speed of the vehicles, for one. Number two, your adrenaline is going, so that's going to impair your judgment. And number three, when you're running across the freeway, a lot of times, if you're running across the street, period, you're going to glance. You're not really going to try to make a cognitive decision and say, let me stare at this direction for a second or two. No, it's just a quick glance, and then you go for it. And one thing that I also saw, some of the comments, is no matter how... I'll preface this by saying I don't have kids, but I've worked with a lot of kids. Every parent believes that their kid will make the right decisions in life. But you also have to remember, kids are kids.
Yeah.
They don't have that cognitive ability to realize what can happen, and they don't make the best choices. And to blame anybody, even the kid, even the mother or the father, the family in general, is ridiculous. It's an accident. It happened.
Yeah.
It can happen to anyone.
Very unfortunate.
How large a group of kids have they said were out there at that time? The ones that broke away, so to speak.
I don't believe they stipulated a number.
So even if it were 2 or 3, 4, with this poor individual who got hit, they could have been egging him on as well.
Well,
make it way, you can make it, run, go, you can do it, or
possible.
Going back to the comments,
almost peer pressure.
There was a thread that I found on one of the news sites saying that the kid was actually pushed by one of his friends. Oh. But you know how it is; people are going to talk.
Right.
One of these parents said her daughter heard from one of the kids that he was pushed into oncoming traffic. Validity of that is unknown to anyone. This is just what people are saying. But yeah, the comments are vicious.
Let's define push. Was literally physically pushed or pushed, egged on into, hey, he can make it across, make it. Obviously, we don't know. Those answers will never be, or those questions will never be answered. But there's so many layers to it.
I think the bottom line is kids do stupid things. Yeah. And no matter how good of a parent you think you are, your kid will do stupid things.
Yeah, they'll always remind you you're not.
Right.
Yeah, and it's
and that's one thing that I think a lot of parents have to understand. And I hope the family of this kid doesn't feel guilty.
Yeah.
They did nothing wrong.
No.
This is what happens.
No, not at all.
It's an accident. And I hope, the people that blame the driver, you have to understand that this lady or this man are going to live with this the rest of their lives.
They will never stop seeing that.
Right. I mean, they very well might avoid highways and freeways in general.
We don't know what they're doing right now. For all we know, they're locked up in a psych ward freaking out. We don't know. I mean, they were sitting there. They stayed. I mean, the vehicle was at the scene. They stayed. Right. They saw what happened. They saw this kid.
Yeah.
And the aftermath. And that's horrible.
Now, another problem I have with the comments. Again, it's really best to not read the comments.
Don't read the comments.
Oh, my God.
On anything.
Some of the pro-gun advocates.
Oh, God, here they go.
Oh, now we got to ban trucks. Oh, shut up.
Yeah.
You have no decency.
None.
And this is the whole point that comes down to your rights. What you call your rights are more important than the lives. This is exactly what the protest is about. For you to spin this and use that stupid analogy that we have to ban all trucks because a truck killed, you're a stupid idiot.
Yeah.
You're an idiot.
That's totally unfair to the family that's grieving, totally unfair to the child that lost their lives, totally unfair to the driver that is dealing with this, however they are.
I've always had an issue with jokes that were made too soon. And being guilty of that.
Well, I think this is one of those cases where you never make a joke about it.
But not even. The point being, though, is I have a bigger issue with those trying to spin the situation in their favor too soon. You just, even if you want to make that comment about, time to ban trucks, time to ban vehicles, this isn't the time, dude. This isn't the place.
And
it's never the time.
Even at the end of the day, it's still a stupid analogy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A Ford F-150's intent is not to kill.
Yes.
And so
that's not by design what it's for.
Right. And that's one thing that really irks me is obviously everybody has their political judgments and all that stuff, but to try to spin such a horrible accident to something like that, again, you're a low-level cognitive person if you think that argument makes sense. It just doesn't make sense whatsoever.
To make a point. Right.
It's just stupid.
In your favor. But our condolences out to the family and everyone affected.
Yeah, that's horrible. And the child's mom is a registered nurse, so she's constantly, that's her life, is helping others in need, and that's, I think his uncle also works at the hospital.
Yes, that's what was released in the...
So, I mean, that's a shame. It's just a horrible accident. I remember when I was in middle school, I lost a couple of friends in a railroad accident. And I knew two of the brothers. It was the Porras brothers, but it was one of those things that, obviously this is a long time ago, but the family lost all three of their sons. And it was just horrible, heartbreaking. But yeah, these are accidents, and really they shouldn't be used for any political
For anything. For no gain.
So stupid.
No.
Anyway.
Just people grieving, people were lost.
What else?
Speaking of people lost, moving on into a national forefront, if you will. We'll come back to some of the local things here shortly. But it seems like death does not take a vacation on a national level. Most recently, some of the people that have passed, Barbara Bush, Avicii, which blew me away. Avicii, the
I had no idea who he was until he died.
It's one of those that you probably have heard his music. You know the music. You've heard the songs before. Vern Troyer, Mini-Me, passing away also. He lived a short life. All right, that's my joke.
That wasn't too soon.
No, that wasn't too soon. No? Not at all. And some of the bigger news that I'll share with most recently Prince. Charlie and I were talking
died
about
again?
this. He keeps every year he keeps dying.
Jesus.
I guess the investigations have just recently come out that, and maybe Erica, you can shine a little bit of light on this also, with your knowledge in medicine and stuff. He did not realize, and I don't know, I guess through the investigation, it's taken 2 years. It's been 2 years since Prince is dying. This investigation has been going on. There are no criminal charges being presented for this, because it may actually be ruled as an accidental overdose because Prince did not realize the Vicodin he was taking was
laced with fentanyl.
Counterfeit. That's what they were calling it.
That's what it was? Huh.
Illegal, I guess, is that the more proper term? Because it was laced with other things.
But did he have a prescription for it?
He was seeing a doctor but as the police investigated Paisley Park, his mansion, his studios where all this occurred at, there was pills everywhere.
I think, I don't think it's... to say it was counterfeit, the cause of death being counterfeit drugs or whatever, I don't think that's the case. I think it's just basically an overdose because he was taking them, whether or not he knew that they were laced with something. His intention was to take them, and if he didn't have a prescription, that's still illegal use of...
What was he was taking Vicodin?
He thought he was taking Vicodin.
And instead he was taking... Was it laced with fentanyl, or was it Vicodin with fentanyl?
There was all kinds of
I think he was probably taking too much stuff to actually keep track.
Well, fentanyl on its own is ridiculously potent.
Mm-hmm.
So fentanyl is one of those drugs that you don't really give to patients.
Yeah.
Like, here, take this home.
Yeah, it's something that you're probably given at the hospital or something.
Under observation and proper care.
It's like a Schedule 1 narcotic or something.
It is, but
it has to be under 2 locks or something like that.
Yes, it's a double lock.
It shouldn't be in a drawer.
No, at home.
At home.
It's not something they...
Next to the Skittles.
It's not something they typically prescribe for you to take home.
You want some pancakes?
And a side of fentanyl. Let's give you some pancakes and a side of fentanyl.
The pills, despite where they were coming from, legal or illegal, they weren't what he thought he was taking. They were in various containers.
Maybe they weren't what he thought he was taking at that moment. Maybe he just got confused with all the stuff he was taking.
And it's very likely that that's exactly what happened. It's very likely that he thought he was taking his regular dosage, which is what had kept him going this long and had actually placated whatever pain he did have.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that what he was taking was okay. He was taking a bunch of pain meds. That took care of his pain, and apparently he had that under control. But when you throw in the fentanyl, unbeknownst to him, there was fentanyl. That kind of just put him up on another level, and that pretty much sedated him. What happens with that is the actual medication didn't kill him. It was the respiratory failure that did. Because of the medication, that's what it does. And that's usually why it's done in the hospital setting as opposed to, here, take this home.
So you can be monitored. And
yes, because you do eventually have the risk of not breathing. So if he makes the fentanyl with whatever else he took, he pretty much just stopped himself from breathing.
Yeah.
And that's what happened.
And so let me ask you guys this, and even up to the listeners, because it's hard for me as a fan to separate this sometimes, even though he really made it difficult to be a fan sometimes. But to those listening in, and I asked the two of you in the room, so then, did Prince die from drugs? the bottom line is, do you look at Prince and say he abused drugs?
Yes.
I kind of don't. Because, yes, he was taking hard medications. They were very, very potent. But the fentanyl is what threw him off. And that's what from what they're saying, he didn't know that's what was in there. But right. I mean, the Vicodin, you can take Vicodin without killing yourself. And that's obvious by how long he had been taking it.
But wasn't there a history of him being on drugs on and off?
This is true.
Not really, no.
He had, actually, weren't they reporting that he was they were giving him bupropion, I believe it was?
Well, I mean, how far back are we talking on and on? His musical career? No. And see, that's where I say it's hard for me as a fan to separate it, because we knew the clean life Prince lived. He was a vegan. He didn't eat meat. He didn't eat,
In my opinion,
he wasn't a drinker. He didn't do drugs. But the bottom line is, and I said this after he died, I mean, immediately after he died, the bottom line is Prince died from a drug overdose. Mm-hmm. Does that make him a druggie?
Well, I think if you're taking any medications in a way that they're not intended, that's drug abuse. So for me, if he wasn't, for one, if these pills were laced with fentanyl, right, where did he get these?
That's my issue there, and that's why I don't understand why they're saying this was an accidental. How the hell does a doctor give you this medication?
So then,
and it's laced with fentanyl. No, the doctor is responsible for this.
Right.
I don't care how you spin it. Now, I don't know. I'm not privy to more of the details. I'm just finding out exactly what you're saying. And in passing, I heard that something about fentanyl in the pills, but if the doctor was giving him these medications, why do they have fentanyl?
Okay, so let's say the doctor wasn't. And again, it goes back to my question. He was getting it from somebody else. So does that mean, by definition, he was getting it from a drug dealer? So again,
I'm pretty sure somebody at that level with that much income,
Michael Jackson,
are dealing with drug dealers that are beyond the scope of a regular street drug dealer.
Yeah.
Right.
They're probably getting it from doctors themselves.
Yeah.
And high level drug dealers. And they're not, that's the same thing with Michael Jackson, is that he was on the propofol, which should have been administered by a doctor and
in a hospital setting,
observed by
yes.
And that's, again, that still falls under drug abuse, if you ask me.
Every time we pull propofol at the hospital, I think of Michael Jackson dying, because the only time we pull propofol is when we are completely gonna knock a patient out. We need this patient to remain sedated for an extended period of time, and that usually entails them being intubated and on a ventilator.
Yeah.
So for this doctor to give Michael Jackson propofol and free range to it, it's negligence.
And I think that was, with the Michael Jackson case, that was one of the issues where his personal doctor ended up going to prison. But there was also other indictments from other doctors or something that were giving him the medication. Mm-hmm. I don't know about Prince's situation.
Yeah, I'm not privy to all the details.
But to me, it sounds like am I wrong? Did they not find a lot of drugs?
Yeah, that's what he said. They were everywhere.
Drugs everywhere.
That's why I'm saying. I mean, that's indicative of a person that's using them in a way that's not intended.
And if it wasn't, and when I say drugs, I don't mean there was crack cocaine.
Right.
There was these pills,
prescription
everywhere.
Pills, but did he have prescriptions?
Yeah.
And that's
he might have had prescriptions for one set and for a certain amount, but I guarantee you he didn't have prescriptions for all of those, because you can get prescriptions, you can hoard them. Maybe he got smart, but if he was using to the level that they found the amount of pills at the house, then he wouldn't be hoarding them, because he'd be using them.
And you guys got to, and then the other side of all of this, to add on to it, is you have to almost understand how much money Prince had. Yeah. Prince had so much money, he didn't care. They're finding 16, 17, 18 gold bricks
just lying around
in his vault where all his music was stored. They found money bags with cash just sitting for no apparent reason in this vault. So what I'm adding to it is that he could have been paying somebody, just saying, just give me here's a prescription. And just get this to me,
And
please.
It's likely, like Charlie said, it's likely there was more than one doctor, and that would explain the number of pills sitting at his disposal at any given time. So maybe he did have a prescription for every single bottle he had there, but this goes back to the doctors not checking who's handing out what, because, like Victor said, there's a crap load of money here.
It's Prince.
Here's money. Give me pills. Here's more money. Give me pills. They're not going to talk to each other.
And if the prescriptions themselves would have had Prince as the name when they're handing them out, then it would have probably been a different story. But the fact is that a lot of people don't know his real name, and whoever was picking him up, it was probably under their name, or they probably had some legal document saying, I'm picking these up.
So can pick up for Prince.
So, and
or
I think
whatever this name is.
When you have this disposable income, you're going to get away with doctor shopping and abusing medications like nobody in our level ever would.
Right.
We just don't have those resources to have multiple people pick up multiple prescriptions
and
at multiple locations.
There's a great, and I know it's on YouTube. I think it's on the DVDs, but there's a great interview with Kevin Smith, an evening with Kevin Smith on his first DVD, and he talks about working with Prince. And in fact, it's a one question that an audience member asks Kevin Smith, saying, "Whatever became of the documentary you worked with Prince on?" And it was a one question that Kevin Smith turned into about a half an hour discussion of dealing with Prince. And part of it that always sticks, it's the funniest thing for Kevin Smith. But the one thing that I remember the most is Kevin talking to Prince's handlers, management, and saying, when you get to this certain level, like a Prince or a Michael Jackson, they really don't understand the word no.
Yeah.
Right.
Prince calls up in the middle of July and says, I need a camel. At 3:00 in the morning. How can you turn to Prince and say, Prince, we're in Minneapolis.
It's 3 in the morning.
It's 3 in the morning.
No.
We cannot get a camel. I mean, and it's a stupid example, but still, when you're onto that level, and I don't even know if I guess a part of it is money, but also just superstar iconic status.
Right. Yeah.
How do you tell them, you really need to cut back?
And I think that's at the level where you have to really question the people around you.
Yes. That's why you need to have a very solid group of people that are going to keep you on your toes and actually grounded.
And tell you no.
Before we digress any further, this entire conversation goes specifically to the opioid epidemic.
Yeah.
There is an opioid epidemic. We just don't see it on a grand scale because, one, we don't have that kind of money.
Right.
Working in the hospital, though, I see it. We have our regular drug seekers.
Yeah.
We know who they are. We know them by name. The minute they sign up, we know exactly what they're here for. And there's a lot of them. And then you also have the ones we don't know by name, but when they come in with their complaints and what they are complaining about, their pain and how they describe it, and I'm allergic to morphine.
That's a cookie
You
cutter.
know what they're here for. You know exactly what they're here for. So when you're going to sit there and tell me that it's okay to prescribe these medications and it's because it's a medicine, but you're going to tell me that marijuana is a Schedule I drug, we're going to have some problems.
Yeah.
I have not, as of yet, seen anybody get so messed up on marijuana to the extent that people get messed up on
You never met my ex.
Opioids.
That's all she did. My goodness. Well, I think, and to further...
But, I mean, marijuana it's vilified to an extent that it's not even fair. It's not apples and oranges.
But that goes all back into when you go back into the history of, say, tobacco and the
how many people have died from marijuana?
Thank you.
Yeah.
How many people have died from opioid overdoses? Let's start counting.
That all goes back into the legalization and the crop owners and all that stuff that happened way back. I mean, anybody can do their own research.
That's not why.
The legalizations and non-legalizations. But the other thing that I want to throw in is I almost 99%, and I know I'm overstepping my boundary, but I almost 99% guarantee Avicii, we're going to find out, pretty much the same situation.
I was kind of, I don't want to really say anything until further investigate. It's either that or a suicide. I hate to say it. It's that or a suicide. He did have medical issues, but pancreatitis isn't just going to kill you overnight. Not like that.
And he was also dealing with alcoholism. From my understanding, he'd gotten better about that. But I'm still thinking this may have been a relapse. I'm not wishing, I'm not hoping, I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying these are the facts. The same thing with Vern Troyer.
I honestly don't...
Go ahead.
No, I honestly don't know anything enough about Avicii to even speculate what the hell's going on with that poor guy. Like, I don't want to say anything. He's
Troyer does
still
have
fresh
a
in the
huge history, though,
yes.
of depression and
when that came out, I wasn't
attempts.
really surprised.
Right? Yeah. Anybody that has kept up with some of the news over the last 10 years, he's been an alcoholic.
The poor guy has been a mess for a while,
and he has serious health issues and
psychiatric issues.
Yeah,
his depression was very well documented to be very severe.
He was really public about it on Instagram and posting pictures, saying he was on his way to rehab and when he got out, and it's one of those, when I heard that one, I wasn't shocked at all.
No.
And as horrible as it sounds, I hope he's in a better place.
I hope he's found peace.
Right. Because it seems to me like somebody at what he's gone through, every day living
that way
with his situation and stuff, it seems like it would have been worse than ending it himself. He seemed like that type of person where he was basically shut down for a long time. Yeah. And I think he put on a good
brave
positive
face.
A face for Instagram and for the internet. But I think anybody that followed him on Reddit or Instagram know that guy was in a really dark place.
Was he there before the fame? Was he there after the fame?
Well,
was it a roller coaster ride for him?
I don't know exactly, but I mean, he had I think he started around 99, and then Austin Powers was around 2001 or something
like 96 to about 99 was when he peaked at 99.
Yeah, so I think it's one of those things where it's probably started right around that time. I think that's the height of his career is probably when a lot of the addiction started. But he's had these medical issues since birth.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of pain to deal with. That's a lot of, it's just a horrible way to live.
And now you've got the means to placate it. Whatever means he chose, whatever route he chose, he had the money to do it.
And we all heard stories, even here locally. He'd been in town at least once that I know of, maybe twice, where... And again, these were stories, but you heard about him being so drunk on his scooter that he couldn't move his scooter.
Yeah.
There's videos of that.
Yeah.
It's horrible to watch because people thought it was funny.
What was that? The Real Life, or that one celebrity show where they were in the house?
When they live in the house.
He was totally drunk off his ass most of the time, and that's where the not being to drive the scooter thing came actually confirmed, because he did it all the time on that show, and he was a wreck on that show. Obviously, it only got worse.
I think a lot of people, what was it called? Celebrity?
I can't remember the name of it.
I think a lot of people that were on that show were selected because they would have.
Was it Bridget Nielsen? No. The girl that came out on...
Yeah, Brigitte Nielsen.
But
the fact that they've been on that show, I think, shouldn't be any sort of surprise.
No, and that's what Charlie's saying.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They picked those people because they knew that it would make great television, and people like to see people suffering.
Be wrecks.
Right. And
it's easier to watch somebody else be a wreck than to live your own wreck of a life.
And I shit you not, I don't watch TV. I really don't watch TV, and I haven't watched TV in years. I got rid of cable, I don't know, probably 10 years ago or 9 years
before it was cool.
Right, yeah. Everybody's talking about that. But yeah, I mean, I watch Netflix and stuff every now and then. My wife watches more TV than I do, but I go months without watching TV. And there's been times where I'll flip through something and I'll watch one of these reality shows. It makes me angry.
Yeah.
And it really makes me angry. I just can't do it. And I'm not saying this to sound pretentious or anything, but TV and the internet is ruining our society.
It is.
Big time.
I completely agree.
Big time.
Well, they were each separate of themselves at one point, they have now merged into one, and you can't separate one from the other. And as a fan of quote unquote historical reality, I guess, because I love Pawn Stars. I love
Cops.
I love
that's
Cops.
what I'm saying. Those are the reality shows that I remember that I loved.
Yeah. I love, counting cars and all these great, but I get it. It's a show. These guys probably aren't that way in real life if you were to meet Danny Coker and say, hey, Count, I like you, whatever. But it's the other ones. Yeah, exactly. But it's the other ones where, Kardashians and all that, where there's really nothing going on and people are so involved with their life.
I'll tell you, the Real World on MTV had a story.
Yes.
Had some type of character development where you actually learn who these different people are, and you got to see
they were
the good
flawed.
and the bad.
You saw redemption.
Right.
They grew, like you said.
Pedro, the first season of Real World, you got to see his fight with HIV, and they revisited that to see when he lost his life. Those had meaning behind them.
It was inspiring, even though it was tragic.
Right.
And now it's just, we're just going to place these people on TV because they have money.
Housewives
and let them cackle at each other.
I can't deal with that.
I recently got DirecTV because my mom kept saying, Aiden needs to watch cartoons. Aiden needs TV. And I'm like, fine. I got the Wi-Fi for the house, so I got the DirecTV. I have not watched anything, and I have a DVR, so I don't even set it to record. I watch Netflix because I have selected shows I watch. I watch stuff on Hulu because I have selective specific shows I watch.
Yeah.
But you're right. I flip through. Yes, we got to get back to that. But I flip through the channels, and the stuff that's on is absolute dribble.
It's garbage.
I'm like, what is this crap?
It's garbage.
Yes, it is total garbage.
I hate it.
And then you have the Kardashians on for the entire day. It's like, you know what? Just seeing this across my guide is making my brain melt.
I'm okay with Impractical Jokers, and I'm okay with Rick's Restorations.
But
and
that's
American
different.
Pickers. Yeah,
it's
I know.
A different.
But again, still the same. It's still the same, but the better of the two, I would say, because it's still scripted. It was the greatest thing when it's show business.
But I can sit there and watch American Pickers because I like the stuff that they find.
But part of it is
that's a whole different.
Yeah.
But part of it is still, it's a business. It's not the reality of it.
Yeah, but you can't compare that to the Kardashians and their trash. You just can't.
The Kardashians, Kim Kardashian literally got famous for her sex tape.
Yes.
There's nothing else. Like, even if you took, what was it, that show Laguna Beach, I think what it was, that one girl that ended up getting a job with the fashion industry, and then she created her
this girl that's the designer, that Lauren Conrad girl. Yeah.
See, I can understand that.
She did something. Yeah, she's like, okay, now I'm popular. Let's do something.
Not that there's anything wrong with it, but Kim Kardashian just blew somebody and had a sex tape, and that's what. I mean, I just don't get that.
And then you're talking about. I thought about this the other day. It's so funny that you mentioned this because I thought about everybody these days has a sex tape. Somebody a few years ago in the entertainment industry must have told all the entertainers, look, if you want to get hot and you want people to start talking about you, get a sex tape.
But you know what?
It started with Pamela Anderson.
Yeah, but even then, she was like, at least mockingly or shockingly, even if it was fake, she was shocked. Or
yeah,
she was like, oh my God, this can't be happening.
But 20 years ago, there were no sex tapes. There were no, at least in the public eye that we talk about, the frappening that happened back in 2014 when they released all the iCloud pictures.
And I see that as different than having a sex tape. That was unconsensual.
That was not cool at all.
I think as unconsensual as it was, there's still the jaded person in me that says,
oh, you're a flat earther.
Somebody.
You're a flat earther. You think that they did this on purpose?
Not that they did it on purpose, but somebody has told celebrities, and I'm not talking about the Illuminati. I'm just talking about an agent somewhere. These agents got together and said, look, if you want to be hot and happening, you got to have a sex tape out. You've got to have naked
Well, and
pictures.
if they're vapid enough to go that route, then they don't.
They're
nothing in my eyes.
They've got to be leaked. Everything has to be leaked out.
I think the difference in that, I don't agree with you, because a lot of these celebrities, this is the culture now, where a lot of teenagers, men and female, male or female, do have naked pictures of themselves or videos and stuff, and they're just naive to think It's on my phone. Nobody will ever see it. And they have these apps that you can hide, folders on, photo folders. They have all these apps that you have a PIN number, but people don't realize how the internet works. And I can tell you that years ago, a dozen years ago, if I can get into your Wi-Fi, and a lot of people, it's easy to get into your home Wi-Fi, I can browse your computer. And it's easier than people think. And now we're carrying a computer with us all the time, our phone. So I think that's the culture, is that a lot of these people, whether they're celebrities or not, have these intimate photos and videos, and they just don't suspect that anybody's ever going to get access to them, or they trust the person that they're sending to them. Think, he'll never share that on the internet.
It's like I was telling you. I was reading up on. You had sent me a secret message, on Facebook,
right?
And I said, "Oh, I didn't know about this." I guess apparently now Facebook Messenger has secret messages that the messages disappear after 5 seconds, 20 seconds,
or whatever.
Yeah. So you can send messages back and forth, in which I explained to Charlie, this sounds a lot like what Snapchat does.
Yeah.
And then we both said, well, we don't know what Snapchat really is. I don't get Snapchat. I don't have Snapchat. And the reason why I don't have Snapchat is because many years ago, a friend of mine told me, well, the pictures go away. You can send a picture, you can send a story in Snapchat, and then they go away.
But where do they go?
And I said, I guarantee you I can find an app that will save those pictures. Even though Snapchat says it's going away or it's deleted, I will have an app ready that will download all the pictures on Snapchat. You good with that? Oh, you got to plug that in now?
Yeah.
All right.
Keep talking.
It's stay tuned, El Paso. I'm just saying, a lot of these the celebrities, is it because of in the Prince situation and the Avicii situation, and just reading more about it here in the past couple of minutes, I mean, is it still the people surrounding them that are enabling them? Is that how Prince is going to be forever remembered? Call him an icon, call him a musical genius, call him one of a kind. But the bottom line is he died a drug user. I've had to accept that in the past 2 years now.
I mean, why is it so bad to accept it? I mean, he's a real person, and real people.
Because he wasn't. But that's the thing. To
you,
the
he's
fans,
not a real.
No, of course not.
So why get hung up on it?
I don't know. It irks because he made it so difficult to be a fan. He made it so hard to support him sometimes and to stand up, for what he was at that time. And maybe because you don't have that, and I'm not picking on you, Charlie. I'm just saying you don't have that type of person that you're a fan of. You enjoy things. You like this guy. You like that music.
I'm trying to think in my head, like, who would be somebody that... But, yeah, I don't...
Comedian? There's not a comedian where you jump out and you go, oh, man, I love that guy. I'd go see him anywhere.
No. Even real-life people, like people I know, I don't know. I guess I'm a little I'm a little socially.
But we've talked about that. You don't like to worship, so to speak, because they are at the end of the day, at the end of the life, normal people.
I don't look at celebrities as role models, and I don't. I have a thing when people do. The live feed died.
Yeah, it's okay.
Damn.
But
we had so many people watching.
We actually had a couple.
I just don't have that attachment to people like that. I can't think of one single person as a celebrity that I admire so much that if I heard the story that they died or whatever, that my heart would like race. Or I can't think of one single person.
That's not to say you wouldn't feel bad. You felt bad about certain celebrities passing. You feel bad about a comedian.
I think what it is that I've met a lot of celebrities, like top tier, A-list celebrities. And I've seen some celebrities, I don't know, I just see them as people, but I know that some people don't see them that way. They see them as this can never do wrong or always looks beautiful, and that's really, I don't know. I've seen Eminem close up and his freckles and his skin tags and
imperfections.
I've seen Jennifer Aniston and her mustache and her chin hair, and I've smelled her BO, and I've Jennifer.
So is that true? Because I heard that she's got pretty bad BO.
Yeah, but you know what it is at the time? Maybe she was ahead of the game, because I feel a lot of feminists now will not use
that don't wear deodorant and don't shave thing.
Don't shave.
Yeah.
I think she was probably one of those.
She's a pioneer.
Right.
Ahead of her
before
time.
it got popular.
Ah, okay.
Which is ironic to me, because isn't she the voice of like L'Oreal or something?
It's
Maybelline or
no. It's with an A, and I can't think of it.
Avon?
No. She has a pink Cadillac.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised. Erica, is there
Almay or some crap?
Is there somebody, Muse, I don't know, is there somebody out there that when they go, or has there been somebody, some celebrity, when they go, you have an attachment to, you feel attached to?
It's ridiculous as this is going to sound. Selena was huge for me at the time. When she was murdered, I did go out and I listened to the music, and I liked her music before that. I was a fan before the whole murder, and before it was like,
I wasn't a fan until the murder.
Yeah. There were people who were like that, and Charlie's more like, good, she's gone.
I hit the floor.
Oh, wow.
You're bringing back old 1990s Charlie, watch out. Oh, man. And I'm just, and then there's a part of me that, see, I can't make fun of that. Old me would have before Prince died. Mm-hmm. But then, of course, everything is funny till it happens to you, right?
See, but at the same time, I don't feel that affected still. I don't know.
I think Selena was a big part of that, because I remember sitting in a parking lot at Sunland Park Mall with my mom and her friend and her friend's daughter, which was about my age at the time. And I remember them sitting in the parking lot listening to the radio of the news coverage. And I saw them crying, and me and her friend's daughter looked at each other like, what the hell's going on? I don't remember how old I was, but I think I was fairly young, but I remember thinking like, Mom, you didn't even know her. And I just, from an early age, I don't get that. I don't get
the connection.
How
about not even Richard Pryor? I mean, I'm looking at.
Oh names. Well, I lost my shit when Richard Pryor died. I got fired on stage.
Well, yeah.
Do you not remember that
story? I remember the story.
I got the lights turned off, the microphone turned off, and I literally had security escort me off the stage.
I will say this about I wasn't there, but I remember you telling me the story, and I'll let you tell the story. I'm gonna let you finish.
I was about to dive into this story. I was just like,
this has to be. Let me preface it by saying, this has to be the absolute worst / best way a comedian gets told to get the F out.
Yeah.
So Pryor, very close to it. In fact, right before Richard, this is how we started really connecting at one point back in the day, had his own website. Allegedly, he was a part of this Richard Pryor website. I'm not sure. I think Jennifer was really controlling a lot of stuff there.
Yeah.
But those in the comedy world, pre-Facebook, right around MySpace, all sort of attached to Richard Pryor on his website. And you could leave chat room comments, you could leave topics and discussions. And we all got to know his wife at that time, who is still his wife now, I would imagine, Jennifer Pryor. Yeah. Commenting with her, dealing with Richard, tell Richard we said hi, Richard says hello, blah, 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 blah. Well, Charlie and I would share Richard Pryor stories from that little chat room. And then when you talk about comedians, in my opinion, we've talked about this before, Pryor is top 2.
Yeah.
Top 1, in my opinion. The night or the day that Richard Pryor passed was in December. I can't think of it.
December 27th, something 2005. I believe.
Yeah. And a few days later, Charlie tells me I did my tribute to Richard Pryor.
Oh,
on stage.
Yikes!
And I said, "Uh-oh." And now?
Okay, so the way it started,
and I know you're pulling stuff up.
Yeah, so. I just want to make sure that I had the date right. Oh, he died December 10th, 2005.
Okay,
so. December 10th was a Saturday, and I had been working the entire week with Doug Benson, the stoner.
And I can't remember the other guy's name, but he was also really funny. No complaints about the guys on the show. They were great. But Richard Pryor died that Saturday morning. I was teaching a defensive driving class, and I got the news.
So I was kind of upset because this had been working up from like 6 p.m. to about showtime. And everybody was like, so you're going to do it? And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do it. I was excited. So I went on stage. With that out of the way, give it up for your host and MC for the evening, Charlie Moreno.
Wow. All right.
So I go up there and I'm just staring at the audience like, I don't know what I'm supposed to say. And it took a good 30 seconds to really get the crowd going.
Let me guess. You started with, a family walks into a talent agency.
I did my church set that night. I did my church squeaky clean comedy. No sex jokes, no death jokes, no drug jokes. Squeaky clean. I had stories about my socks and playing in the dumpster, and I did that for 15 minutes. And the crowd started laughing, and it was great. But afterwards, I went up to Bart, and I told him, what was that? I mean, I had a hard time. Like I didn't know you were going to do that. And we got into an argument, and he's like, look, just because you've been doing this for a little while, I've been doing this, all this time and this and that. And I'm just looking at him like, I just never thought you would start a show like that. So when this whole Richard Pryor thing comes up a few years later, that's what came up to the conversation. I was like, do you remember 9/11? Do you remember what you did? And I think he does remember.
Well, that's, you know what, you've just confirmed. You've just confirmed as we quickly start to wrap up. Next episode. Bart. Yes.
Let's have Bart.
We're bringing Bart in. That's just it. That's just the bottom line.
Yeah.
If anything, to clear all that up.
And I'm sure there's going to be different details that he remembers.
I'd like to hear his side of the story, though, however.
He's going to yank you off stage off your own podcast.
He's going to turn the lights off in the room.
I can control the mic now.
We're all unceremoniously going to get kicked out.
Yeah. And you know what? And I'll say this. I apologized to Bart years ago. I made amends, and I didn't go to the comic strip for many years until last year was the first time in a long time that I had gone to the comic
After
strip.
you had gotten yanked off stage.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, there's a lot of bitterness, obviously.
There was a lot of bitterness.
Well, understandably.
Here's the thing, though. After that night, 2005, the story about what I did traveled through the internet. Doug Benson posted about it on his blog.
Yikes.
Pre-MySpace, pre-Facebook.
But here's the thing. I got a lot of good reviews about it from people that... And this was before everybody was videotaping stuff on their cell phones. But it made the message boards, the comedy message boards, and it got all over the place. And people are like, who is this guy? So they looked up on YouTube, and I had a couple of videos on there. Because of that night and because of the stories that Doug Benson shared and other people started sharing, I ended up getting picked up for the New York Underground Comedy Festival. Wow. I got to headline Caroline's in New York City in Times Square. That led to... theater that I used to do in Carlsbad, California. The following year, 2006, I was on the road 42 weeks out of the whole year.
Wow, because of
busy.
that
Right.
specific.
And that was what got the buzz. Mm-hmm. And I ended up headlining the New York Underground Comedy Festival, the Cringe Humor Show. I got to work with Robert Kelly, Patrice O'Neill.
Whoa.
Jim Norton. There was a lot of big names at the Cringe Humor Show. I got to do that one, and I closed the show. The promoter, Patrick Mulligan, he said I was headlining, but not with these guys in the room. I just went last.
Yeah.
I can't headline when they're on the... And the only reason I closed was because they had other gigs they had to get to. I was just like...
You were there.
It was a lucky timing issue.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know, let me just take a step back. Doug Benson, big name.
I mean,
big name in
huge
comedy.
Podcast.
Super Jaime, the documentary he made about 10 years ago. So, I mean, if this guy's giving you props, that's something.
And I think he liked it as a comic. Like, I'm pretty sure he was kind of upset that I went over my time. It wasn't professional at all what I did, but I think he saw the humor of this opener had such balls to do this, and I actually got kicked off the stage. And yeah, that's how that happened. But
it was your tribute to Pryor. It was your tribute to 9/11.
And I knew I was going to go to New York. So
you're like,
I said, fuck the comic strip. I'm out. And I left.
I'm making a call to Bart during the week. We're going to set this up for the next time that we get together.
I would like to hear his side of it.
We'd been threatening to have Bardo on, but now I think by all standards we need to have him in to explain that so much. I want to hear not just his side of your Pryor, but I also want to hear his 9/11. What was that about?
What
Bart?
was that about?
Yeah, that'll be question number one.
And sometimes I think, man, I wish we had cell phone video back then. Because I don't know if he'll deny it or what, but it had happened. I can give you the list of a couple local comics that were there that night.
And you've made amends with since then.
Oh, yeah,
obviously.
yeah. And I've apologized to him on Facebook. I've spoken to him. And I told the story on a Facebook group with local comics because one time there's been a lot of local comics that will try to ride Bart saying he doesn't support local comedians and this and that. I worked my ass off for, I think it was 2 years doing comedy, open mics, karaoke bars, and traveling to Austin and San Antonio and Dallas before I got to set foot on stage at the comic strip. I did a fundraiser for Patrick Francis, who was that middle school student from Ornado that got paralyzed at a football game. I did that fundraiser. We raised a couple $1,000s for his family at the comic strip. That was 2001. That was not only to help the family, but it was also so Bart Reed can see me on stage. And he left early. He left before I went on stage, so he didn't even see me. That was months of work to prepare that show so he could see me, and he didn't see me. But that's what, when I posted on Facebook and this group, it was because some of the local comics were saying, Bart doesn't support local comedians, he doesn't respect us, this and that. No, you still have to pay your dues. He doesn't owe you anything. Mm-mm. Show up with good stuff. Show up with the skill. And again, if you're the opening act, your job is not to say shit and fuck and cunt and all that stuff.
Sell drinks.
Yeah, your job is to make sure the show goes well, keep people happy, keep them laughing, and sell shit, sell drinks, sell food. Make sure that they tip their wait staff. You're a glorified waiter. You're not a star.
Yeah,
it's the headliner show. Have respect for the headliner, and that's what a lot of the local comics don't get.
The level of comics he brings.
Yeah.
So to even get a chance to be on there,
right?
You can't be sitting there complaining about it.
There's some people, and I've been out of the game for a long time, but back then there was a lot of people that. They thought it was about them. They thought, like, I deserve this. No, you don't.
Mijo, you're funny. You should be on stage.
Yeah. Performing in front of a sheet with a hairbrush as a microphone.
Yeah. You all can have hopes and aspirations, and that's part of it. But you still got to, and no matter what industry, be it the comedy, we've talked about this from episode 1, I believe.
Yeah.
You still have to pay your dues. There still has to be dues
Some of these
paid.
local comics put the ass in aspiration.
and now, to be fair, without mentioning names and causing anybody to be butthurt, there's some really good comedians out there here in town.
Right.
I've seen some of the good stuff. I've seen a lot of the bad stuff.
Yeah.
But there's some really good guys. We'll bring Bart in as we start to wrap up here. You're listening to Stay Tuned El Paso. We'll make some phone calls and get him in. Anything else you guys want to talk about, cover?
I was just going to say, speaking of paying your dues, I always question how I got here. And I'm really thankful I did.
How you got here?
Yeah.
To us?
Well, when two people love each other.
Not conceptually.
No, we're talking about me and Charlie. We love each other. We wanted you to be in on it.
When two people love each other.
No, I mean...
The fact of the matter is you haven't gone through the audition yet.
Ah, damn, is that why I'm on this couch?
That's why we covered it.
Damn it.
With the blanket.
You covered the good couch with the new blankets.
Is that why I'm no longer in the recliner?
Let's see how the Propofol pizza works.
Is that why it ended up on my left? Damn it.
Why do you think I was questioning your skills?
This isn't quite working out yet.
Yeah. Oh, so you're saying that there is counterfeit Vicodin, eh? And where would one want to purchase this?
Where can we find said counterfeit Vicodin?
Were you asking how you got here? Or?
No, it's
or is
just
it rhetorical.
No. I'm not asking. It was more of a rhetorical thing. Like, I'm grateful I'm here. It's just
we're asking ourselves.
Well,
hey, now.
I'm glad you're on the show because I felt.
Thank you, Charlie.
I felt like we needed. There was times that, like, one of the main things was that somebody commented that we needed a woman's perspective on things, which I get. I don't necessarily agree with that because this isn't supposed to be like all views accepted, but
this is your damn show.
Yeah, but I do like the idea of having a third mic to add, to steer us in one direction if we start to go a different way, and just to add more like the news stories and stuff like that. It's just I think the flow works better with three of us, and especially a female voice. That's not awkward at all.
No, it's not, because Victor has nothing to add.
No,
then, okay.
I think she's pretty.
Wow.
I like to look.
Have some more pizza.
Is that why the camera's sitting the way it is?
Yeah.
I already saw comments of me sitting here like, who was it, Cleopatra?
Yeah, I saw that comment. And
I'm going to start wearing like Cleopatra attire.
Headgear and what it's like I told you off, and I'm not saying this to stroke the ego or whatever, but I've told you the times that we've hung out separately and not on the podcast. I think you bring something to the podcast. I don't think it's a female perspective, like Charlie was saying. I don't think we need a quote-unquote female perspective. That works great in radio, where you have your host and you have your sycophants of people surrounding you, the female news, the Robin Quivers, if you will. But I don't think that's what having you on here is about. I value your opinion. I've told you before, I think everything you have to say is worth $1,000. Every word you speak is worth something of value to us, and I think you bring that. And otherwise, and I'm not saying it to be funny, but otherwise it's just me and Charlie sitting here, and we need that extra output. We need that extra opinion as well.
I think what I like is that you're like in radio. If there is a woman on a morning talk show, a lot of times it's the woman that ends the fun.
She's the mom. She's the voice of reason.
Like, stop
She's
it.
the wet blanket.
Yeah, and that's what I didn't want.
Yeah.
And for me, like, on Opie and Anthony, they used to mock a lot of radio morning zoo shows and things like that because they have some shows that they make it seem like the hosts, the male and the female, are a couple or something like that. And another show, like when they have the zoos with multiple mics, third mics or fourth, the stunt boy that does all the pranks and all that stuff. A lot of times the woman is the one saying, "Oh, you're taking it too far." And I think the way that you fit into this is completely different. It's more like you're one of the guys, but it's also not like overtly like dirty or mom or it's a good, it just meshes together, I think. But
plus, Charlie and I aren't in the best of health. If something happens, you're there to
inherit the show.
Well, I can sit here and talk into the mic. I don't know how it's going to project on. I don't know how to set this thing up. So
no, I mean,
we're still screwed.
No, I mean literally, if something happens to us, you can perform CPR.
Oh, so I'm only here because I'm an EMT. Okay, got it.
Yeah. I've had my issues in the past, and Charlie's not looking so good these days.
I had too much pizza.
So,
is that the fentanyl starting to kick in?
It's propofol.
Oh, okay.
Propofol and pepperoni.
That's the meat eaters.
Properoni. It's properoni.
You're listening to Stay Tuned El Paso. It's good to be back with you guys. It was fun trying to catch up and hang out with each other and feeding off of our energies. It's been too long. Let's not make it happen again that way. And the next time that we do start this up again, we'll definitely have guests with us, and I'm leaning toward Bart. Bart's got to come and talk to us.
Yeah, we'll shoot him a message and see. I think either Facebook or just give him a call. And
we got his numbers. We know how to get a hold of Bart.
So
do
that again.
That was. Did you get that on video?
No, it's been off.
You're listening to Stay Tuned El Paso. It's Victor Cruz, Charlie Moreno, and Erica. Hashtag STEP. Tell all your friends, all your family about us. Let's get those downloads and let's get those likes on the Facebook pages and every means of downloading the podcast of Google Play. Oh, I wanted to ask you. We'll have to save it for the next time, but I wanted to see how you liked your Spotify now that you've been into Spotify.
I have to renew the subscription tomorrow. So I
Christ on a bike.
I have 3 hours to decide if I'm going to renew it.
Go with the $10 or whatever.
Yeah. Or the other alternative is to download the pirated app and just not pay for it, but still use it.
Still use it. Yeah. They're cracking down on that. I've been reading.
We'll see.
We'll see. We'll find out.
Charlie's got his ways.
Send me a cease and desist.
Some properoni.
We'll find out in a few weeks. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for listening. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
See ya.
Want to sponsor the show? Email info@staytunedelpaso.com or message us in Facebook.